Search Committee training presented by the Office of Equal Opportunity Programs. During this training, we will discuss unconscious bias, considerations for recruitment, the duties of the affirmative action representative, and some do's and don'ts of interviewing and questioning. First, unconscious bias. There is a substantial body of evidence, research, which demonstrates that most people, men and women, hold unconscious or indirect bias about groups of other people. Depending on your discipline, it may be referred to as a stereotype, an implicit association, mental models, statistical discrimination, spontaneous trait inference, a schema. All of them refer to the tendency of the mind to apply characteristics of groups, real or imagined, based upon judgments we make about that individual group. Most of us routinely rely upon unconscious assumptions, even though we tend to think of ourselves as fair or unbiased. Still, the human brain works to categorize people and objects around us. This allows us to quickly and efficiently organize or retrieve information. Research shows that we have a tendency to engage in unconscious or indirect bias. Both blind, randomized trials and real-life studies have demonstrated over and over again the tendency of all human to engage in unconscious bias. Consider the following. When shown photos of people of the same height, evaluators overestimated the heights of male subjects and underestimated the heights of female. When asked to rate the quality of verbal skills indicated by a short text, evaluators rated the skills lower if they were told an African American wrote the text than if they were told that a white person had written the text. And they rated verbal skills higher when told that a woman wrote it versus a man. When a study was done evaluating the curriculum vitae of job applicants, we discovered the following. The curriculum vitae of actual applicants evaluated by 238 academic psychologists, 118 of them male and 120 female, of one-time CVs at one time of job application for the junior level and one-time CVs at the time of early tenure, randomly assigned a male and a female name to each. For entry-level CVs, academic psychologists, it was discovered that they were more likely to hire male applicants and to give them higher ratings for teaching, for research, and for service experience. For tenured level applicants, they were more likely to tenure men than females, but were 4 times more likely to include cautionary comments on the CVs with a female applicant or of the female applicant rather than a male. Another study involved the evaluation of resumes. Resumes were sent to a variety of employers advertising openings in local newspapers in Chicago and Boston. Randomly assigned white-sounding name or African-American sounding names were arbitrarily placed upon each of the resumes. The results: applicants with white-sounding names were more likely to be called back to interview for a position. For white-sounding names, applicants with better qualifications were more likely to be called back. For African-American sounding names, however, applicants with better qualifications were not more likely to be called back. There are still other examples of real-life studies. The analysis of letters of recommendation revealed the following. 312 letters of recommendation for medical faculty successfully hired at large U.S. medical schools were reviewed. That is the letters for men versus women. More letters for women had a minimal assurance, whereas more gender terms were used also in connection with female resumes. More letters for women included doubt raisers. Men more frequently were referred to as researchers and colleagues. Women more frequently were referred to as teachers and students. Women were 4 times more likely to have references in these letters to their personal lives. Women had fewer standout adjectives. Recruitment considerations. First of all, recruitment begins before you open a position. A more effective way of recruiting is to develop a long-term or an ongoing strategy rather than seeing recruitment as a one-time event. Also, recruitment should be ongoing in the sense that all members of the faculty or department should have recruitment at the forefront, whether they're attending a conference or interacting with colleagues from other schools or interacting with PhD students in other programs at other schools. Other strategies include ensuring that your search committee is diverse, if necessary, even involve people outside of your unit or your department. Make sure that you designate someone as a diversity advocate, but be aware that each member of the committee should be a diversity advocate. Candidly discuss this reality or this notion of unconscious bias, even as it relates to underrepresented minorities. Develop broad hiring goals. When we focus too narrowly, we are limiting our potential to attract a diverse pool. Again, remember that recruitment is an active process, not one that is passive. Make sure that you discuss and commit to multiple specific criteria which relate to the essential requirements of the position. Avoid global, overgeneralized judgments. Assess the relevance of all criteria to ensure they're not limiting your applicant pool. Determine marketing venues for your job, both traditional and non-traditional. Where can one find the diverse candidates? By all means, use proactive language in your advertisements, such as, "The University of South Carolina prioritizes diversity as an institutional value." In all committee discussions with applicants, focus on the issues of scholarship, qualifications, and their potential contributions to the department. Consider candidates who may currently be thriving at less well-ranked institutions. To create your short list of those to invite to campus, use a candidate screening rubric. And finally, reopen or intensify the search if the applicant pool does not include diverse candidates. After all, the goal is to recruit the best possible candidates through search processes. And of course, we want to ensure that our search process is conducted with integrity and transparency. We want to make sure that they are thorough and comprehensive and they are a nationwide search. Utilizing the resources that are available to us to produce a diverse candidate pool. And of course, move expeditiously and systemically and respect confidentiality by all means. I might add that we also want to provide the candidate with the appropriate access to information about the department, the school, the university, and the community. We want everyone to leave the process feeling that we are proud of our search process and we've been fair to all who are involved. Make sure you also provide the requisite information and administrative flexibility to ensure that a final decision by the department is able to be made smoothly. We want to make sure that our search process results in a recruitment of an outstanding candidate, one who not only brings the skills that we're looking for, but one who also will be a major player here at the University of South Carolina. I cannot emphasize enough the need to ensure confidentiality. Search processes should not be discussed with anyone outside of the search committee. I will emphasize that again. The process should not be discussed with anyone outside of the search committee, with the exception of the department chair or his or her delegate. This ensures that each of the candidates are treated with confidentiality and their rights are being respected as well. It is also important for us to make sure that we provide opportunities for those making the selection to have the freedom to discuss the candidates during the committee meeting without fearing that their comments will be shared outside of the process. A breach of confidence by a participant in the search process would be considered a serious violation of professional ethics and may result in disciplinary actions. In cases where a well-known candidate or even a candidate that is known externally or internally emerges in the pool of applicants, anyone who has served as a mentor for this individual or has a relationship that would impair a reasonable and fair judgment needs to recuse him or herself from the search process. This will reduce the possibility that some candidates might not apply because they are aware that search committee members may have relationships with the candidates that are unfair and may bias the decision. Additionally, the candor of the external references referees might be affected if the solicitation letter bears the signature of the search committee chair and his or her relationship to the candidate is known. Again, this compromises the process and creates a conflict of interest. I want to now move on to the duties of the affirmative action advocate. Remember, all members of the committee should serve as an affirmative action advocate. However, it is the duty of the committee to select an individual who will serve in this capacity. It is highly recommended that your affirmative action advocate be a tenured faculty member or an individual with extensive experience on search committees and one who has shown a commitment to affirmative action and diversity. Consider non-minorities as well as the minority individual for this position. Once selected, the advocate should evaluate the process on a continuing basis, keeping in mind the goals and the principles of affirmative action and diversity as defined by the university in its mission statement. The advocate should lead discussions with committee members in identifying the benefits of diversity and in developing a diverse pool that could lead to the hiring of a member of an unrepresented group for the department or administrative unit. The advocate should assist the committee in self-scrutiny about its own potential bias or unconscious bias or indirect bias. The advocate should provide the committee with departmental profiles and hiring goals. Contact specific college and our department designees for more information when that is needed by the committee. Bring process gaps to the attention of the search committee and the chairperson for immediate action. Process gap may include but not be limited to the following: bias, prejudice, or stereotyping in verbal or written communication such as meetings, written correspondence, and interview questions. Inadequate representation of unutilized groups in a pool of candidates. Bias, prejudice, or stereotyping of candidates during evaluation periods and or given little or no weight to the affirmative action goals of the university as a factor in the hiring process. Review all search committee activities to ensure that differences are cultivated and respected, and that fairness is the norm. These activities include, but again are not limited to, developing job descriptions and minimal qualifications to cast the widest possible net, utilizing multiple and creative recruitment methods, using criteria for evaluation that do not preclude persons with non-traditional career patterns or equivalent education and experience, conducting interviews that are consistent and legal for all applicants, facilitating campus visits that provide similar opportunities for each candidate. I'd like to say that again. Facilitate campus visits that provide similar opportunities for each candidate. Develop a final slate of candidates that, whenever possible, gives the hiring official the opportunity to select from a diverse pool. There are protected classes for which the university must take affirmative action to employ in advance. There are two groups: blacks, males and females, and white females. It is permissible to be a race or sex conscious driven committee in recruitment under the following conditions. Blacks and or white females are underutilized in the department and hiring goals are projected in university affirmative action plan. The candidate is fully qualified for the position. Race or sex is not the sole criteria used in the selection process, but merely one of several factors given consideration. The affirmative action advocate is expected to monitor carefully the recruitment process to ensure that the position is advertised in a manner that would ensure it reaches prospective minority and women applicants. The EOP office may be consulted for recruiting resources. The advocate is expected to monitor carefully the recruitment process to ensure that adequate and reasonable deadlines are set for the search process to be conducive to an active search for women and minority candidates. And the university's administrative procedures for recruiting academic personnel as described in the EOP policies and procedures are followed carefully and closely. And to the extent possible, the affirmative action advocate should encourage participants to complete the EEO data reporting form. It may be necessary to extend the application deadline based on the composition of the applicant pool. The advocate should ensure that objective and job-related selection criteria are established early in the process, and these criteria are applied equally to all persons. Should ensure that the selection criteria does not adversely affect potential class members, i.e., does not cause a disproportionate number of them to be eliminated. If there is an adverse impact on protected classes, then the selection criteria may need to be validated. The advocate should ensure that proper consideration is given to persons with disabilities who apply in determining that the necessary accommodations are granted and put in place for persons with disabilities. The advocate should ensure that special review is given to the credentials of the top-ranked black or white female candidates if hiring goals are projected for these groups in the affirmative action plan. Written justification for non-selection is placed in the records. It is the responsibility of the advocate to ensure that persons selected to interview the candidates are aware of interview questions that are not permissible. It is the responsibility of the advocate to ensure that documentation submitted to the Executive Vice President for Academic Affairs and Provost with a request to make an offer is thorough and accurately represents your search process. It is the job of the advocate to ensure that the EOP office is informed of offers accepted and rejected. It is the job of the advocate to ensure that documentation of the search process is maintained in the department's records for a period of 3 years for domestic candidates, 5 years for international candidates. Please take a moment now and view some of the do's and don'ts related to questions or questioning during the interview process. Finally, remember that as a selection committee, you are a reflection of the University of South Carolina. We are certainly making judgments when we bring in candidates to the campus to be interviewed, but how they perceive the search committee is a reflection of the University of South Carolina. If you are brilliant, the university will look brilliant. If you are inappropriate, the University of South Carolina will be perceived as inappropriate. Just as the candidate is trying to wow us, we should try to wow the candidate. Committees often make the mistake of not ensuring that their applicant pool is diverse. Committees often discuss information about candidates that's inappropriate. Candidates are sometimes asked questions of a personal nature which should not be permitted or allowed in our processes. A woman or an underrepresented minority candidate are sometimes told, "We want you because you bring diversity." The campus visit at times can be narrowly structured, and candidates are not given the opportunity to meet with others like themselves during the campus visit. Committee members or other faculty may make summary judgments about candidates without viewing specific criteria. Some of the don'ts. Don't communicate about the search process via email. Remember that we live in the day of the Freedom of Information request. Do not put comments on your evaluation sheets because they too are subject to a Freedom of Information request. Do not take notes if you enter into an executive session. And remember that if you do enter into executive session, it should be done with parliamentary procedures or following parliamentary procedures. And even as you come out of the session, you should also follow proper parliamentary procedures. Do remove yourself from the committee if you perceive a conflict of interest via grant activity, a personal or a familiar relationship. This brings us to the end of this presentation. If you have any questions, do not hesitate to call the Office of Equal Opportunity Programs. And good luck with your search as you seek to bring diverse candidates to the University of South Carolina. Thank you for your time.